Welcome, everybody. It is Adam Rank, and we're going to be talking today about who the best options would be to be the Chicago Bears starting quarterback in 2021. Is that the proper way to say that? That is not. It's 2021. But in any event, it's another edition of the Adam Rank podcast here, broadcast on YouTube, or you can download the podcast on Apple Pods, Google Play, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Welcome. And let's get rolling. Let's start the show. Before we do, though, I do want to talk a moment about Allen Robinson. And the other night I put this on Instagram because it seems like the Bears are angling towards franchising Allen Robinson. And you know what? There's a number of different ways to look at that. Perhaps they're going to franchise him and trade him to another team because then they don't walk away empty-handed. They give him an opportunity to pick the team that he wants to go to, and at least you get something in return. That would be kind of cool. Obviously, selfishly, I would like to see him stay with the Chicago Bears. He's been one of my favorite players of the last couple of years. I loved him when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and if he does leave this team, that would be if he's not playing for the Bears, the best option for me, selfishly, would be him going and playing in Jacksonville. This is really a situation the Bears should have settled years ago. Like last year, should have given his money. Like he's obviously one of the best wide receivers in the game, which is, it's weird when you don't have a quarterback to deliver him the football. There's a reason why Allen Robinson leads the league in contested catches, because every throw, it seems, is going to be contested. And so it's disappointing. At some point, you just want to see him succeed somewhere. You want to see him, like, not Green Bay, but somewhere else. Like, go anywhere. Go into the AFC. Go play for the Bills. Go play for the Jags, the Browns, whomever. Like, go do your thing. Like I want him to win. That's my number one thing. I want him to win for the Bears, but I also want him to win. So if they're going to franchise him, that's fine, but just sign him long-term. Don't screw him over with a a 1-year franchise deal with the intention of not extending him. Cause that's not cool. Like that's not cool to the man. He's played his ass off for the Chicago Bears with some miserable quarterback play. You know, it's nice. You know, it is one of those things that's like, why are we spending all this money on a high-end automobile if we're just going to leave it in the garage? I drive once a week to the golf course. I'm not going to go out there and get a Tesla or anything like that. Like, I'm fine with the Nissan that I'm driving right now. That's all that I need. We're wasting it. Why I should let somebody else take it? It's like the golf clubs that I have. Like, I have these sick Srixon golf clubs. Now I go and play a lot, but if I'm not going to play, I should give them to somebody else who's going to go use them. I want to use them, even though I'm not the best. I might be the Mitch Trubisky of golfers. But in any event, I hope they do the right thing by Allen Robinson. Doing the right thing, however, is going to be getting him the right quarterback, which has obviously been a problem for the Bears for forever. Now, I know that you've probably heard me say this before, and I'm going to repeat it again. Listen, you're coming to see Brian Regan. He's going to do the thing about girth units. That's six. It's what I do. The Bears quarterback, the best Bears quarterbacks of my lifetime. Jim McMahon, Jay Cutler, Walter Payton on the halfback option, and that's it. That is it. And if you're a first-time viewer or listener to the show, and you're like, that's hilarious. I know I've said it like 1,000 times. And I'm tired of saying it. Like, I want the Bears to have a good quarterback. And let's think about some of the top options. Now, you're coming into this list. Obviously, if you clicked on the YouTube link, you saw Deshaun Watson there. Let's be realistic. Deshaun Watson is the best option for a number of teams. Apparently not the Houston Texans, but a number of teams. And this is the thing. I want Deshaun Watson to be the next quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Does the team have the resources to get it done? Probably not. Is it likely to happen? Is Houston likely to trade him? Probably not. Like, it's interesting because when J.J. Watt was released, and everybody goes, oh, see, they'll let J.J. Watt go. You're like, yeah, J.J. Watt's at the end of his career. Like, he's nearly done. Like, it's not Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just combined those words. Raiders of the Lost Ark Harrison Ford. This is Harrison Ford that we saw in The Force Awakens. Like, it's a different dynamic. Still great. Still amazing. Still one of my favorites. But clearly not at the top of his game. You know, you see that a lot. You see that a lot with actors or whatever. Something like that. You know, it's like David Duval. Like David Duval, I know I'm going into the golf analogies here pretty strong. Like, but that's the thing. Like, oh yeah, a number of years ago would have been great. J.J. Watt, not the best. Like he will go to a good team and make a difference. Like I hope he goes to Buff. Like first of all, he wants to come to Chicago. His wife plays soccer in Chicago, so I think that would be kind of cool. But if he wants to go and play in Buffalo or do whatever like that, that makes a lot of sense. He's going to be a good player for a good team. But Deshaun Watson is a different player. Like the one thing, and I think that Bears fans should be able to relate to this. The Texans have been looking for a quarterback for as long as the Bears have. Now, obviously, their first ever pick was David Carr, who I think is a great quarterback. And I've written some fan fiction about if David Carr had been the Bears quarterback in 2005, 2006. During that time, we would be looking at a dynasty of that era with David Carr. But unfortunately, he went to the Houston Texans that decided not to block for him. And if you don't think that blocking for your quarterback makes a difference, then you might want to go watch Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But the Texans, and even though they've had some nice years from Matt Schaub and things like that, they've never settled their quarterback position. Lucked in to Deshaun Watson because they could have very easily have fallen into Mitch Trubisky. And in a perfect world, that's what would have happened, and they would still be looking for a quarterback. I think that for as many faults as we have with the Houston Texans organization, they understand, like, you can't get rid of your quarterback. Getting rid of your quarterback is a different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can change the rims on your car, but ultimately you still want that car. And I think that that's what the Texans realize. Like, it's not easy to find a quarterback. And even though this is fun to sit here and look at guys, and you look at Russell Wilson goes into this too, about like, yeah, Russell Wilson wants out. Deshaun Watson wants out. Like, where will they land? Houston and Seattle. Yeah, unless those two guys get traded for each other, which might not, that's kind of interesting. That'd be kind of fun. That would be a very Ozzie Smith for Gary Templeton type of trade. And I know that only Mike North would probably understand that reference because that was so old. My dad always talked about that for whatever reason. Like, he was still, not that he cared too much as a Cubs fan, but still thought that was amazing. He's like, how do the Cardinals end up with whatever? Poor Padres. Don't do that with Fernando Tatis. However, you might want to hold on to him forever. In any event, those quarterbacks are probably not going to be moving. Carson Wentz is a player that gets talked about a lot. You might have seen or read or heard some reports that the Bears are the front runners for Carson Wentz. Here's the deal. They are not. What the Eagles want to do is send him to Indianapolis, who is not offering a first-round pick. So the agent goes out there with a reporter who he is friendly with, and he goes, hey, man, he's like, I'm going to tell you something right now. The Bears are putting out the best offer for Carson. And then, you want that to get back to the Indianapolis Colts, hope that they panic and say, fine, we'll give you a first-round pick. I don't see any of that happening. I think this is going to end up being a game of chicken. The Eagles are kind of in no hurry. I think the Eagles are actually the team that needs to move him. I mean, if Carson Wentz doesn't want to be the backup quarterback and doesn't want to compete with Jalen Hurts, he needs to be moved. I think the Colts can wait. There's a draft. Fine, we'll wait. The Bears can wait. There's going to be other quarterbacks. We're going to talk about them here in a second. There's other options. So I don't believe the Eagles are going to get a first-round pick for Carson Wentz. And I will say this too. If the Bears had to give up a third round, fourth round, sixth round, whatever, I wouldn't even give up. I'm not even sure I'm giving up a second round pick. Ryan Pace, for as much as we want to rag on him, and outside of Adam Shaheen, he does okay in the second round. I thought both picks last year will end up being very good football players. Jaylen Johnson is a good cornerback. He's going to be even better next year. I think Cole Kmet takes a step up. I don't know that he's going to go to George Kittle level, but I have a lot of faith in him. I think that Cole Kmet's going to be fantastic next season. So I'm not even anxious to deal a second round pick for Carson Wentz. So let's pretend like he's not going to be available either. And then Dak Prescott is somebody who's a free agent. Yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, of course. Yeah. If Dak Prescott's a free agent, I would pay whatever. if the Cowboys let him walk away, which I cannot see them doing, because even they know that it's not easy to find a quarterback, even though they've had some embarrassment of riches at the position. The Cowboys are not going to let Dak Prescott walk away. And if he does, I will tell you this right now. I would pay whatever he wants. What is it? What do you want? Yep, here, sign on the dotted line. Dak Prescott is a fantastic quarterback. It would be ridiculous to let him go. We could also sit here and talk about the rookie quarterbacks. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't spent a lot of time getting into the rookies yet. That'll be something we will explore. I think waiting and drafting a quarterback might be the best option. Even if you end up with Mac Jones. I don't know if Trey Lance will fall. I think if you look at what the Packers gave up last year for Jordan Love, if you could do something similar and end up with Trey Lance, I think that'd be pretty fun too. We'll talk about the rookies at some other point because I really want to deep dive into that. I don't want to be superficial with it and just start throwing around some names. I want to sit there and actually take a look at some of the quarterbacks, especially ones who will be available a little bit later. See if we can get somebody in the second round. So we'll save that for another time. Let's talk about veteran quarterbacks, guys that I would like to see be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Now, I do want to talk about some guys. First of all, he's not in the top 5. I know Alex Smith is a name that gets thrown around a little bit because of a history with Matt Nagy, and I love him. I love Alex Smith. There's a couple of things working against him here. Number one, he's not a free agent. I think Washington is in no hurry to get rid of him. They did re-sign Heineke, and it'll be interesting to see what the FT does in the draft because they could select a quarterback. They might go that route. Hey, they'll pick a quarterback. Hey, here we go. They select a quarterback. They're behind, if I have the draft order correctly. It's weird. The draft is weird that Washington is a division winner, so they get a home playoff game, but I don't think that hurts them draft-wise, which is stupid. I'll have to check that out. I want to be for sure. But anyway, they could draft a quarterback. They could go with Heineke. And in any event, Alex Smith is kind of the perfect backup quarterback at this stage of his career. Now, I don't want to ding him for what we saw last season, and I want to believe in a perfect world that he could come in and be a starting quarterback. But at the same time, you know what? You need to have a little bit of mobility in this Bears offense, and I think that any time that Alex Smith would be out of the pocket running, I'm going to be cringing. It's going to make me very nervous, and I want nothing but the best for Alex Smith, so I wouldn't be opposed. If we woke up tomorrow and Alex Smith was the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears, I'd be cool with it. I don't think it's likely. I don't think Washington's in any hurry to get rid of him. And, they've got some maneuverability right there, so I don't think he's going to move. So let's go with number 5. Let's go with Ryan Fitzmagic, which I think would be a lot of fun. And I think that if you're a Bears fan like me, all the time people talk to you, hey, well, why don't you guys get Fitzmagic? Why don't you give him a shot? And it always, it's fun. Like, I love the idea of it. I love this player. But we have to understand that he is going to be a little bit limited. Ryan Fitzpatrick is like the fireball of NFL quarterbacks. Like, it's fine in small doses. It's cool once in a while, but it's not something that you want to roll with every week. He's won some big games in his NFL career, but there's also been times where you're like, what is happening? We've seen that, in our own, we've seen that before. We've seen games, primetime games, especially for anybody who plays fantasy football. You buy into Ryan Fitzmagic, and that's the time that he ends up getting pulled. He throws 4 interceptions or something like that. So he's a good option. It would be fun. I would buy a Fitzmagic jersey. I just think that ultimately you're 9-7 if you have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Number 4 would be Jameis Winston. For me, you know what? I know a lot of people have been excited about Jameis Winston. Like, hey, perhaps. But let's look at the reality of the situation. He's not far removed. He's 2 seasons removed from 5,000 yards, 30-30. But you saw the impact that it had when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady's the GOAT. the best quarterback in NFL history, so it might not be fair to say this, but Jameis Winston is the kind of quarterback who's going to come in and give you a 7-9, an 8-8, maybe we go 9-7 season. There's going to be a lot of turnovers. There's going to be a lot of passing yards. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't know that Jameis Winston's going to put you in a better position than you are in with Mitchell Trubisky. And this is the thing, and I should reiterate this, and I should have talked about this off the top. I know a lot of people say that, well, they got to go for a quarterback right now. They can't rely on a development guy. I think that if they brought in a quarterback, be it a rookie or one of the next three guys I'm going to talk about, and that quarterback shows some promise, and their 9-7 and 10-6 looks different than a Jameis Winston version of that, then I think that Matt Nagy could buy some time. Like, Matt Nagy's never had a losing season. And if Matt Nagy goes 9-7 next year and makes the playoffs, he's not getting fired. Let's just be honest about that. But let's also say, too, like, if there is some momentum with a quarterback who is developing, I think we've already seen the best of Jameis Winston. Like, I don't think that there's any secret. Like, if Jameis Winston went out there, went 9-7, I would look at that and say, this is the best it's ever going to be. Like, it's never going to be better than this. You would need a perfect storm to get to the Super Bowl. I think that it's been proven. I think with Tampa Bay winning the Super Bowl this year, and again, it's Tom Brady. I know they added Gronkowski. They drafted Tristan Wirfs, and they did a lot of nice things. I'm not there thinking that Jameis Winston's going to take that next step. I would rather see him go be a backup like he's been doing in New Orleans. I think that he, perhaps the Saints stick with him. Maybe that's an option for him. I don't know that it's going to be realistic. That's why I'm going to move to number 3. This is going to be highly, somewhat controversial, but I will say this about Sam Darnold. And I will throw my hat into the ring for Sam Darnold because I do believe that he has not been given an opportunity to really show what he can do with that New York Jets offense. And I think that playing with Adam Gase really kind of handcuffed him. And if you want to think about it, of all the guys who have left Adam Gase and have gone on to play much better, I think that works out. Adam Gase got a lot of love for his work with Peyton Manning, for his work with Jay Cutler. Like, it's amazing. You're like, if you look at Adam Gase's career, it's based on 2 seasons. 1 season of working with one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, one of the biggest studs, and another season of working with Peyton Manning. Like, that is pretty, like that, you should do well. If you work with the GOAT and you work, one of the GOATs and Peyton Manning, you should be doing pretty well. So Adam Gase has always been given a little bit too much love. I think Sam Darnold, he's way too young to be given up on right now. And if you brought in Sam Darnold this season and you kept Allen Robinson and you're like, okay, we're going to run the ball. We're going to use I wouldn't expect Sam Darnold to fetch a first-round pick, especially if the Jets use the second overall selection on a quarterback themselves. If the Jets draft a quarterback, and you might have to wait a little bit for this one, if the Jets draft a quarterback, well, then the price for Sam Darnold is going to be greatly reduced. And maybe you get in now and try to get Sam Darnold for a conditional pick. I think it's the same thing with Carson Wentz. That, hey, listen, you're likely moving on from this player anyway. We'll take him off your hands. We'll give you a conditional pick. I know that a lot of people are out there saying, like, it'll probably cost a couple of firsts or what. I don't think that's the case. It's not Derek Carr or anything like that, an established quarterback. So I would wait. I would wait out the Jets. And you know what? This impacts your draft board as well. If you look at it and the Jets take a quarterback second overall, well, then you know that you don't need to go back and draft a quarterback, or the quarterback that you draft can be had in the second, third, or fourth round. Instead of having to use a first round pick on a quarterback, you don't have to trade up for anybody. There's a possibility you get Sam Darnold. Maybe you get him in the draft or something like that. But I think that he's somebody to take a risk on. And this is another situation too, where let's say like a 9-7 season from Sam Darnold would be much different than one with Ryan Fitzmagic or Jameis or even Alex Smith or somebody like that, because you can look at it and say, well, Sam Darnold's still developing. Like, he's somebody who can develop into being a better quarterback. This player has a lot of talent, and I watched him as an amateur, and I'm beyond USC. I remember when he played at San Clemente, home of the Tritons. Sam Darnold is a good quarterback and is going to be successful. He's not Josh Rosen. He just needs to be given a proper opportunity outside of Adam Gase. Another quarterback I would look at, Gardner Minshew. That's my number 2 guy, Gardner Minshew. The Bears had interest in him when he was at Washington State. He was one of 2 teams that he talked to the point Gardner, who got along famously with Matt Nagy and the Bears staff at the time, thought he was going to the Chicago Bears. And I kicked myself thinking about how different this Bears organization could look if they had taken Gardner Minshew in the draft, perhaps used a 5th round pick on him. What would that look like? Because Gardner Minshew is a good quarterback. He had a losing record with the Jags, but his touchdown to interception ratio is off the charts. Last year, he had the 3rd best passer rating when blitzed, which would be perfect for playing with the Chicago Bears. He was somewhere around 115, ahead of Ryan Tannehill, just behind Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. 2 quarterbacks I hear are pretty good. And so now Gardner is likely going to be replaced as the starting quarterback in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is the presumptive number 1 pick. Now, obviously, Gardner would be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. If something happened to Lawrence and you needed to go with a backup quarterback, I think that Gardner Minshew is a very good option, if you'll excuse me for a second. So there could be some interest in Duval of just holding on to him. Like, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's not a huge cap risk or anything like that. And you've got a guy that can go out there and win an NFL game. He's done it before. And I know you look at his record, I think it was 7-13. And you're like, that's not great. But did you watch Jacksonville when Gardner wasn't the quarterback? Again, playing in Jacksonville with learning different systems and everything that was going on with that organization, who I have respect for. I think that I think that he can be had. Now, obviously, we would be clowned. Like, oh, they're just going to trade for all the Jags quarterbacks now. And I get it. Perhaps we could send them back Nick Foles to be their backup quarterback. I don't care. I can't worry about that. If a guy can come in there and help you win games, and like Sam Darnold, if Gardner goes 9-7, 10-6, again, you're with a developing quarterback that you think over the next couple of years could probably end up getting better. It gets Nagy extended, which I know a lot of you probably don't want. But Matt Nagy is a good coach. Like, if Sean Payton is stealing your plays, probably a pretty good coach. Now, we see how fragile the ecosystem with the Chiefs-based offense could be if you don't get good offensive line play. We saw that in the Super Bowl. But I think at the same time, Gardner Minshew gives you a good option to win and win a couple of games and go on a little bit of a run. And if the defense improves, I think going back to a Vic Fangio disciple instead of Chuck Pagano, God bless Chuck Pagano, a man I have a lot of respect for and a lot of love for, I don't think that was the perfect fit. And I think that going into the last couple of years, I think Bears fans wanted to deny that the shift in philosophy, is as slight as it was going to have a bad impact. So this year, when you see Eddie Jackson as one of the premier safeties in the game once again, I think we'll be like, oh, this was for the best. This was for the best. So if the Bears defense is playing well, if Gardner comes in and he brings that swagger and there's a lot of things. Like, I hate to say it, and I hate to put this on the kid, because you always hate to compare players to the GOATs and things like that. Gardner got a lot of Jim McMahon in him. He really does. Like a kind of a great Chicago quarterback. Like a better version of Rex Grossman, which isn't saying much. But somebody who's got a little bit of an attitude and a little bit of flair. As a matter of fact, I should have made him the number one guy, but I love the guy who I have at number one. It's not Derek Carr, who I would take Derek Carr. Like, don't get it twisted. If the Raiders are realistic and they want to move Derek Carr and they want to sell him on a discount, it's like eBay. You know what? I buy a lot of vintage golf shirts now because, I don't know, it's my thing. But I go and I always like, this is a Palmland shirt from the 70s. I'm giving you $5 for it. I'm not paying you $30. If the Raiders are realistic, and if the Raiders have decided that they're not going to win with Derek Carr, which I can't believe is the case, if you spend any time watching Raiders games, you do not watch Raider games and say, like, if they had a better quarterback, they would be winning. That's not something that anybody says ever. Derek Carr is not the problem for the Las Vegas Raiders. So let's just put that out there. But I think there's an opportunity to get Marcus Mariota. He can play in this league. I know that he's been snake bit with some injuries, and it's been unfortunate. But I really do believe that he's shown enough during his time as an NFL quarterback. This guy can play football. And we saw it. He rallied the Titans to a playoff win over the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years ago. I don't want to go all Matt Flynn or anything like that and get swept up in one game, especially against a dog shit team like the Chargers. But that Chargers game was pretty impressive. And we saw a lot of mobility. And we saw how well Marcus Mariota could move in the pocket, how well he could extend plays, and even rush for yards in that game against the Chargers. To the point, I wasn't the only one who was watching that game going, God, if this guy was the quarterback of the Bears right now, I think we would have a pretty good shot of beating some teams. And I do believe that, it would be tough. It's not going to be cheap. But to me, I would rather spend whatever draft pick, whatever non-first round draft pick you would be willing to spend on Carson Wentz. I would rather use that pick on Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota is younger than Carson Wentz, has more mobility. I think that he's a better value. I think that's the quarterback that we would want. And you look at what Ryan Tannehill has been able to do, the guy who usurped Marcus Mariota in the NFL. To me, that makes the most sense. Former Heisman Trophy winner, high draft pick. He came into the league with a great pedigree. He has shown at times that he can play. And who knows, if he had played for Arthur Smith, perhaps things would have been a little bit different. Who knows? But I think given the opportunity and somebody we know could come in and fit into this Matt Nagy, Andy Reid system, Marcus Mariota is that quarterback. So I implore the Bears to make that move. Do not stop with the stuff, with the dalliance or whatever's going on with Carson Wentz. We don't need Carson Wentz. It's not, no. And again, if you get Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, that's fine. But I think between Gardner Minshew and Marcus Mariota, for veteran options, if you're not going to draft a quarterback, and again, we'll dive into the draft a little bit later. By the way, it's been funny because I've been waiting to post or do this video because after the Super Bowl, I thought I was going to have to come out and do like an instant reaction to the Bears acquiring Carson Wentz. Thankfully, never had to make that video. And I'm not saying never say never. I'm not saying that Carson Wentz is a terrible quarterback or anything like that. But at the same time, we're not giving up a first-round pick. We're not giving up a second-round pick. Stop it. Let the Colts pay for that. That's fine. I think that of the guys that we talked about today, Darnold being the riskiest, I think Mariota and Gardner would be fine. I think we're back in the playoffs if we have either one of those quarterbacks next season. I'll put my stamp on that. Sam Darnold would be a little bit more of a risk, but you know what? I'm taking a chance because I'm a homer. I don't know. I love Sam Darnold. And did want to say hello to everybody. Hello from Schaumburg. Thank you. Appreciate you guys sticking in. New Era. Who would win at a boxing match? Brandon Perna or Tom Grossi? Yeah, okay. Perna. He's got dad strength. What's going on? From Denver, Vikings fan? Yeah, people would love to see Carson Wentz in Chicago for the obvious reasons. But yeah, New Era loves the Gardner Minshew, Mariota. Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Yeah, the Marcus Mariota, I was sitting here being dismissive of guys like Deshaun Watson and wherever because it seems impossible to acquire them. Marcus Mariota might fall into that category as well. But I do want to thank you guys for hanging out, checking out the broadcast. Go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe. We'll have more videos. We're going to be more consistent with this in the coming weeks. Listen, the NFL gave us a week off. I took advantage of it. It was a holiday, trying to get my kids online learning set up, but we'll be doing more of these videos during the off season, more fantasy stuff, more Chicago Bears stuff. So thank you for joining us. Also, thank you for joining the Adam Rank podcast. If that's how you're listening to us, make sure you subscribe, tell a friend, send it, put it on your Facebook page, do whatever. I'll be making a number of appearances. Thanks everybody. We will see you next week. Oh, and say hello to Mitch Hine. Thank you so much for putting the podcast together. We will see you all next week.